Welcome back to Philosophy Unpacked. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and challenging chapter from Nietzsche's famous book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
That's right. This section is called The Bite of the Adder, and it starts with a strange story that sets the stage for some very unconventional moral ideas.
Exactly. The story begins with the main character, Zarathustra, asleep under a tree when an adder, which is a venomous snake, comes and bites him on the neck.
Ouch! So he screams in pain, but what happens next is where the story takes a very odd turn. His reaction is definitely not what you would expect.
Not at all. Zarathustra looks at the snake, and it seems to recognize him and tries to flee. But Zarathustra actually stops it and thanks the snake for its bite.
He thanks the snake for biting him? Why on earth would he do that? That seems completely backward and not what anyone would do in that situation.
He says, "You have awakened me in time. My journey is yet long." The snake sadly replies that its poison is fatal, but Zarathustra just smiles at this threat.
And then he delivers that incredibly powerful line, comparing himself to something far greater. He frames himself as being immune to the snake's attack.
He asks, when did ever a dragon die of a serpent's poison? He essentially dismisses the snake's power and tells it to take its poison back, as if it were an unworthy gift.
So he's positioning himself as being on a totally different level, something far more powerful than what tried to harm him. The snake then licks his wound, a complete reversal.
It is. And later, when his followers ask for the moral of this story, Zarathustra gives an answer that's designed to shock them and challenge their core beliefs.
Right, because he doesn't give them a simple lesson. He tells them his story is actually immoral, and that believers in traditional morality see him as a destroyer.
Precisely. His first piece of immoral advice is about how to treat an enemy. He says you should not return good for evil, which goes against so many common teachings.
That is a very provocative statement. So what's his reasoning? Why would he advise against repaying an enemy with kindness, which is often seen as the higher moral ground?
His reasoning is purely psychological. He believes that returning good for evil would abash or deeply shame your enemy, which is a destructive emotion.
So instead of shaming them, what does he suggest? There must be an alternative way to handle the situation according to his philosophy.
He says you should try to prove that they actually did something good for you. You reframe their harmful act as a benefit, just like he did with the snake.
So it's like what he did in the story. He reframed the snake's harmful bite as a helpful wake-up call, which completely changes the dynamic of their interaction.
Exactly. It avoids creating shame, which Nietzsche sees as worse than direct conflict. He even says it's better to be angry with someone than to make them feel ashamed.
That's a really sharp insight. He's suggesting that direct anger is a cleaner, more honest emotion than the passive aggression of shaming someone with your goodness.
And he continues this theme. He says if you are cursed, you shouldn't feel obligated to bless your attacker. In fact, he says you should curse a little also.
This leads to his next point about injustice, which is even more startling. It's the one that really sounds like terrible advice when you first hear it.
It really is. He says if you suffer a great injustice, you should then quickly commit 5 small ones. This sounds truly awful on the surface, doesn't it?
It sounds horrible. It seems like he's advocating for you to spread more negativity and harm into the world. How can that possibly be a good way to handle things?
His strange logic is that a person who is crushed by a single great injustice is a hideous sight. He believes that shared injustice is half justice.
So the idea is to not let one person carry the entire weight of a wrong. By somehow distributing the burden, you're lessening the crushing impact on the original victim.
That seems to be the very abstract point he's making. It's connected to his idea that a small human-scale revenge is better than no revenge at all.
This feels related to his critique of the justice system. He mentions he doesn't like cold justice and the look of the executioner in the judge's eye.
Yes, he's against a mechanical, impersonal form of justice. He asks for a justice which is love with seeing eyes, a justice that is empathetic and truly understanding.
A justice that sees the whole person and their context. He even says true justice would acquit everyone except for the judge.
That's right, which is a radical call for self-reflection. The judge must first recognize their own biases and fallibility before they can ever judge another person.
He ends with a final, very dark warning about harming anchorites or hermits. He uses a powerful metaphor of a deep well to explain this.
Indeed, he says a wrong done to a solitary person is like a stone thrown into a deep well. It sinks to the bottom and can never be retrieved, meaning the damage is permanent and unforgettable.